All right. Welcome on in to another action-packed edition of the Between the Hash Marks podcast. I'm Matt Lombardo, joined as always by my friend, colleague, mentor, and the purveyor of the Two Deep Zone, Mike Tanya. Mike, how you doing, my friend?
I'm doing great. I feel like I forgot something though. I feel like
What,
I
what,
missed
what,
something.
what could you have possibly forgotten?
Can't put my finger on it, but like something's wrong.
The,
It
the
doesn't.
hat. You're missing the podcast hat. For those watching on YouTube, on the YouTube channel, or on podcast, there's the hat. We found it.
I'm doing great. How you doing, Matt?
Crisis averted. I'm doing awesome because we have football to talk about, some preseason overreactions from the weekend. I'll be hitting the road on Wednesday, heading down to Owings Mills for Baltimore Ravens training camp to effectively close out the training camp tour, which has been a lot of fun. And, just reading through walkthrough, you get the juices flowing. It feels like a preview of what we can expect going into the regular season when it counts for real. It was great to have football to sink our teeth into over the weekend.
That's great. Exactly. I feel the same way because, like, Sunday morning I wake up. Usually it's Sunday afternoon. I'm writing it, but it's like, wow, there are too many topics. There are too many topics to cover. Right. It's usually this, in June, July. It's like, well, should I talk about this guy's Instagram post or whatever? Now it's like, yeah, there's real football. I could cover this first round pick, this quarterback, this team that looked good, this team that looked bad. Great feeling. We get it again this weekend as well.
And we're going to talk a lot about a certain quarterback that got some bad news, a certain team that didn't show up for the preseason, and a whole lot more. But before we get into all that, a little bit of housekeeping for you. If you enjoy the podcast, please go ahead and subscribe in the Apple Podcast Store. Check it out on my YouTube channel at Matt Lombardo975. Make sure you subscribe to the Two Deep Zone on Substack, where you can find the exclusive home of Mike's humor, dad jokes, Superman references, all tied into the best analytical football coverage you're going to find on the internet. Subscribe to Between the Hash Marks on Substack for my insider reporting, features, in-depth, long form stories, and all of those things. And if you enjoy the podcast, please go ahead and leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts because they really do help grow the show. And even if you don't like us, leave the 5 stars, and
Right.
then you can feel free to blast us in the reviews so we can get the feedback, but also get the algorithm bump so people can find us a little bit.
Other people can find us and hate watch us. Like, oh, you
Yes.
how bad this particular podcast is. It's like when you go to one of those superhero movies that sucks, like Craven, and like, I just have to see it. How bad could it be? And then you come out, well, I'm glad I saw that because that really sucked. You could do that with our podcast.
And I do have some news, Mike, because we do read these reviews when they come in. When the 5-star reviews come in, we have a new review from Niraj on the Go. 5 stars. Really enjoying the podcast. Lots of facts and good information. This is the only NFL podcast I listen to. So thank you, Niraj on the Go. That's flattering, and we really appreciate it.
We appreciate it and keep it that way. Don't listen to any other NFL podcasts. They're really, really boring. All of them, even the ones I'm involved in. Don't listen to Shots and Tanier. Just listen to this one. Listen to Shots and Tanier, please. We need engagement too.
Yes, listen to Shots into their terrific podcast on FTN. And speaking of FTN, a team that you're familiar with from your work on the side over the summertime, Mike, I just want to get into the Green Bay Packers' no good, very bad week. Because not only did they decide not to show up against the New York Jets, at one point they were outgained 333 yards to 92 in a really, really spectacular form of apathy that I haven't seen in a very long time, even in the preseason, in a 30-10 loss. Then today you have news of Jordan Love's thumb injury. He could be out for at least a week of practice, maybe more. It just seems like the wide receiver is not catching passes, still struggling with drops. There are some pretty bad trends. You try not to look too much and read too much into August, but there are some bad vibes, it feels like, emanating from Green Bay right now.
Bad vibes. And when the problem that was the problem all last year, and it's the opening of the preseason, and the problem was drop passes. And what was it? Three of the first five passes were dropped, one of which by Malik Heath. Now, hopefully, they're not relying on Malik Heath this year, but it was like it was comical. It looked like a toddler trying to catch a beach ball in the wind. That's disconcerting. And the other side of that is also when you have this team that we're looking for the next step from. So we're not talking
Yes.
some rebuilding team or whatever, or some team that's established itself. It's like Packers, show us you can win the North. Show us you can win playoff games. You can make it to the Super Bowl. And you go out there and you look that flat. Then you get bad injury news from your quarterback. That's all. These are all the things that tell you that next step is less likely to happen.
It's disconcerting because you can write off what happened to the Packers last year, taking a little bit of a step back because of Jordan Love suffering that foot injury in the opener in Brazil. Maybe he was never quite right off of that, appearing in only 15 games. You can't write off the drop passes. And even drafting Matthew Golden in the first round, even rounding back and taking Savion Williams later in the draft, dropping them into a receiving core with Jaden Reed and Dotavian Wicks and Romeo Doubs and Christian Watson still coming back. If the drop passes are still an issue for an offense that prides itself and wants to be explosive, I'm not sure how you make that leap if you don't get the fundamental aspect of catching the football under control in that offense. And they seem to still be struggling with that in a significant way.
Love also had this rep where he starts to sort of scramble and starts to sort of pump fake and winds up near the line of scrimmage and is in a crowd of defenders and kind of tries to do everything at once and winds up taking a sack. And it's like, well, what the hell was that? Now, again, in preseason, you see some weird reps. Everybody had some weird reps this year. That very wibbly wobbliness of the Packers offense, where it's like Love makes these outstanding throws, then you have these brain cramps. You have these drop passes. Sometimes you see amazing passes. Sometimes it's not a drop pass, but you're like wondering, well, what was the receiver open? What's going on? That's you want to see that cleaned up, or you want to see if that's the case, more explosive plays on the other side of it. We see explosive plays from them sometimes. That's not enough. Now, what's with the injury? Now he has a finger injury.
Yeah, he's a thumb injury and underwent a procedure today. General Manager Brian Gutekunst told reporters they think it is a week to 2 week injury, not going to be in practice this week. And if it were up to me, and certainly you have to think Matt LaFleur's leaning in this direction. If he's banged up, I think that's all she wrote on Jordan Love's preseason. You won't see him the next 2 weeks. Next time you see him will be against Detroit. They open up against the Lions.
Right. Yeah.
What a great first test, right?
Yeah. Right. You're up against the Lions. You're going to come out and like, how crisp are you going to be? Because now we're not even talking about lost preseason reps, but lost reps.
Right, and I'm of the belief and the thought process that it's probably not that big a deal that Jordan Love has a minor thumb injury, but when you look at the bigger picture and the total image of what the Packers are and what they're struggling with right now, not having Jordan Love on the field to work on the timing and connecting with these receivers as they're trying to put these drop passes, highest drop rate in the NFL a year ago, behind them, it feels suboptimal.
Right. And again, they're next year's team. It's like, I don't want them to be, and they shouldn't be next year's team again. This should be a year where they're this year's team. And you have all these things where you say, that's not optimal, that's not optimal, that's not optimal. You have to optimize something, or else it's 10-7 and a loss to the Lions, and then maybe a sweep by the Lions, and the same kind of thing we saw last year where all you were good at was beating the weaker teams.
And Mike Sando of The Athletic had a really interesting and compelling story about Jordan Love and the Packers. Spoke to a couple of defensive coaches about Jordan Love. Two quotes that jumped off the page for me, Mike. Want to get your thoughts on them. Quote, when we faced Jordan Love last year, I felt like if you could get to him, you could rattle him. He distributes the ball, and they have big skill players who are big and tough to bring down. That's how he makes his hay. I don't watch him and think, oh, he's going to be fucking people up, unquote.
Yeah. Okay, I don't know. He's creative. He's sort of like imaginative, okay? But like the great play to mistake ratio is not as good as it should be. It's not Patrick Mahomes's, certainly, or even like, yeah, Lamar. Obviously, we're talking about the elite guys. He's like definitely a notch below that, and I think that's compounded by the fact that sometimes the ball arrives and the receiver doesn't get it. And again, there's drop rate. I had to watch this team a lot for the FTN network. If there was a stat for like, well, it was a 50-50 ball, but you knew damn well the Packer guy wasn't going to get it. So that's not necessarily a drop. That's just like, are you going to snatch that damn ball away from somebody? Their ratio had to be like 2% or whatever. And
Right.
right, there was a play like that where Dobbs, okay, Sauce Gardner comes in and makes a play on it, but it's like, I don't know. I had the feeling on that like a number one receiver is going to reach his arms out further, just grab that and rip it away, and Gardner's going to have a hard time just getting his pinky in and taking it out of there. That's the whole receiving core. They're all like that. Maybe Golden is not like that, but the rest of them, historically over the last 2 years, have been like that.
And that's what I think is really fascinating about the Packers. And I love the philosophy of surrounding your young quarterback with what you believe are young and ascending wide receivers. And even as Jordan Love is ascending, he's 26 years old. You like a lot of the things he puts on tape. At some point, the wide receivers have to develop and ascend as well. And maybe Matthew Golden, with his game breaking speed, is going to break that cycle, break out, and be the number one wide receiver at the top of the depth chart. But it just seems like on paper, and when you see it in practice in these preseason games like Saturday night, that the Packers have Jordan Love, who has the traits to, when he's at his best, be a top 10 or better quarterback. And then a handful of number two and number three wide receivers without that bulldog mentality of, as you said, of going up and pulling down those 50-50 balls and making the kind of plays you need to make if you want to be an explosive offense that lights up the scoreboard.
Plus a defense that it's going to be, it'll be in the top half of the NFL. Top 10? Top 5? No. Top half of the NFL. All this suboptimal wild card worthy stuff. And that's the way it's going to be unless Love and Dobbs and Golden kind of and Reed simultaneously lift the boat. And there's no evidence that's happening yet.
And we've barely mentioned Christian Watson working his way back from a torn ACL for good reason, but the Packers say today it's trending towards him beginning the season on the pup list. So that's a 4 week. You come back in week 5. They'd be matched up against the Cincinnati Bengals. So a great time to get Christian Watson back in a potential shootout against Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and T. Higgins. Where are you at on the Packers overall? Because you mentioned that you spent a lot of time watching the Packers. You wrote their chapter in the FTN Almanac. Go buy it, folks. It'll be a smarter, more informed football fan for reading the FTN Almanac. But after writing that chapter, breaking down the film, diving into the numbers, where are you on Green Bay's outlook for 2025?
I'm making sure I have the number right. That's why I'm looking up here. We have them at 9.4 win projection. Wild card soup. They're
Yeah.
wild card soup. You know, so I think they're going to win the division. I think people who think they're going to win the division have just said, "Oh, Ben Johnson was the key to the Lions," or something else that I don't quite necessarily understand the reasoning for. Um, if you put them out of the wild card soup, I don't see that either. I see the Vikings taking a step back. I think the Bears are just going to be the Bears, and that's it. So you get into this wild card grouping of teams, and you say which of the division winners are you going to beat? The Eagles, you kind of demonstrated last year, you can't do that. The Lions, you demonstrated last year, you can't do that. Whatever emerges from the NFC West, which is a little chaotic right now, not if it's the Niners breathing fire or a healthy Matthew Stafford who had like a surgically implanted new neck done in like some weird van somewhere. So you keep adding these things up, and it's like, okay, well that's it. Maybe you win a wild card game because you get matched up with the Bucks or something like that. That's not good enough anymore. Not good enough after this many seasons. That was fine 2 years ago when it was Jordan Love has taken over for Rodgers and they're trying to eat cap space and they have this miracle year. Show that progress and development. And again, there's no evidence yet that that's what they've done.
Yeah, I agree. I think they're a wild card team. Maybe they're the team that pushes the Detroit Lions if the Lions come back down to earth because of the injuries and breaking in 2 new coordinators and all that. They're just a team to me that feels like they're constantly knocking on the doorstep. And it's hard for me to separate Jordan Love as a quarterback from what we've seen from his receivers, what we've seen from a defense that's still trying to put together all of the pieces. It's hard for me to separate Jordan Love's skill set from the lack of big wins in crunch time and a deep playoff run. If they can bounce back this year, remains to be seen. Another team that's really fascinating off the preseason, off a really strong training camp, is the New York Giants. And I've been asked a few different times on a few different podcasts after being in East Rutherford for a training camp stop, what's my viewpoint of the Giants going into this year? Mike, I think that they're a team that hovers around 500. They're competitive. They're in a lot of games because of the defense. What I saw on Saturday makes me wonder if Jaxson Dart isn't pushing the issue to force a decision for Brian Dable and Joe Shane about the week 1 quarterback situation with Russell Wilson after a really strong outing against the Buffalo Bills. Dart goes out 12 of 19, 154 yards, and an absolute strike to little Jordan Humphrey between defenders for a touchdown. Oh, a deep ball down the middle. It just feels like maybe there should be some DartMania building in East Rutherford.
You just said the word DartMania and I died inside. I am a zombie now. I am demon has over DartMania. DartMania? I can't. I just can't. Uh, now the Humphrey play. I'll say this about the Humphrey play. Um, it was up the sidelines. It was a left sideline throw.
Yeah.
The one thing that I always say, well, that's good, but like every quarterback coming out of college should be able to launch a pass up the sideline from a clean pocket and kind of connect with this guy. We saw Shuck do it to a kid named Tipton for the Saints. So and again, you're facing backup defenders at that point and everything. Dart was
Yeah.
good. I'm gonna say Dart wasn't good, and Russ was Russ.
Yes.
Russ is a Russ is a Russ, especially at this time of his career. Every single pass was to the left flat for 3 yards. Like if you look at his stat line, it's like pass to the short left for a gain of 3, pass to the short left for the gain of 3. Stunning, stunning stuff.
Yes.
Um, you're Brian Dable, and you say, well, let's see, week 1, do I start Dart? So I say the rookie is ready, and then put my imprinter on that. Piss off Ross. Who knows what Jameis is doing? Jameis is out there doing a dance or something. Um, and then in 3 weeks, if it all goes to shit, just wait for Mara to come and take away my key fob. Or do I do the thing where it's like, well, Russ is going to start, and the veterans on defense are going to be okay with Russ because he's Russ, and we're going to try and win some of these games by 16-13 final score by getting 5, 6, 7 sacks. And then when Russ obviously isn't the answer, you throw Dart out there, and you're like, okay, here's the rookie because we tried Russ and it's just not getting it done. And the moment he does any, and you put him out there against whatever suck ass team you got coming on it, and he gets
Week five. I've been writing, for weeks that there is no soft landing because of the strength of schedule.
yeah,
Week 5 in New Orleans is the soft landing,
there it is.
and you open up the season at Washington, at Dallas, Kansas City at home, Chargers at home, at New Orleans. So you could very well be staring down the barrel of an 0-4 start with Russell Wilson looking mediocre at best. That's the
Yeah.
time to start Jaxson Dart, because then you have Philadelphia coming in, you go to Denver, you have the Eagles again, San Francisco coming in, and then the Bears on November 9th. That stretch could be getting your sea legs underneath you, or at least thrown to the fire for Jaxson Dart. But that Saints game might be the soft landing to get Jaxson Dart in there. I'm just a firm believer. It's a core value for me that if your rookie quarterback, especially chosen in the first round, looks like he's competent, looks like he's ready, looks like he's not going to harm himself or your offense by being out there, you play him. It's the best way to develop him because he's facing live NFL reps. It's the best way to evaluate him because he's playing first team NFL defenses. And you're a franchise that you might not be married to Jaxson Dart. You might be dating Jaxson Dart because Arch Manning might be sitting there, and you might be 2-15 with the opportunity to draft Arch Manning or trade back and get a bounty of picks to build around Jaxson Dart if you believe that he has the upside to be the guy. Find out sooner rather than later. And a follower of mine on Blue Sky had the great line. It would really be the Russell Wilson moment of all Russell Wilson moments for this to come full circle and have him get Matt Flynned by Jaxson Dart.
But you were at camp and you said he's not getting starters reps.
No, not yet. Not the day I was there. Correct.
So you weren't there. I haven't heard anything out. Ed Valentine got people like that, Patty Trainey. They haven't said first team reps. So and those weren't first team reps. Real, actually, no, it wasn't. Russ was out there with the first team offense, and then he was out there with the backup against second, third string Bills. We haven't seen the thing yet, so it hasn't been
Yeah.
trending in that direction. Now, so we're evaluating based off of he backup on backup action. He looked good. It's hard to make that leap, and I'll tell you what. You talk about 0-4 start. You're 0-4 with Russ, then you pull the ripcord with Dart. If you're 0-4 with Dart, you're fired. You're fired. You're fired. And you talk about core values, everything that's great. I talk about the real politique of the
Yeah.
situation. Brian Daboll and Sheen and those guys, they've screwed it up too many times along the way here. They're thin ice. They've got to do it this way. And frankly, if that means that it is a soft landing for Dart, soft landings are good too. That you didn't go out there against the Commanders. You go in at Big D, which is a hard place, and the fans are shouting for blood, and you're Jaxson Dart. This is the way they're doing it. There's a reason why that's the way it's sort of done in time immemorial.
Yeah, unless you turn out to be Jaden Daniels, right? Unless you turn out to be Bo
We
Nix. But we don't know that Jaxson Dart is either one of those people. We don't even know what Bo Nix is right now.
we exactly we don't know what Bo Nix we're going to talk about in a minute, and we'd see because we're seeing it with Jaden Daniels. Also, they were setting up for that from the beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's fascinating too, because you talk about Jaxson Dart, you talk about the overreactions. I'm not sure that there's a rookie quarterback in the last 5 years that generates the kind of debate, the kind of conjecture, the kind of differing opinions that Shador Sanders does. Because Shador Sanders goes out and plays reasonably well, gets an extended run into the second half. By all accounts, checked the boxes, looked competent, looked like you could build around Shador Sanders if you had to. I thought he made some nice throws, moved the ball pretty well. But you have the one school of thought of fans saying, okay, this is vindication from the people screaming during the draft that the game was rigged against him, which is why he slid to the fifth round. And you have the depth chart that gets released with him listed as the fourth quarterback going into week two. This dichotomy of opinions on Shador Sanders and the vitriol that gets spewed by both sides, I don't know if I've ever seen anything like it for a quarterback prospect coming into the NFL. But here we are in Cleveland.
Right. It's sort of you're in that Manziel place. You're in that
A little
Manziel.
bit.
You have a little bit of a Tebow place, although most people were not polarized on Tebow coming out. That came a little bit later. And you know, you saw what I wrote.
Yes.
When a rookie fifth round pick is out there with the third stringers and plays into the third quarter in the first preseason game, that's telling you that he's considered a third stringer. That's
Yes.
that is the kind of job. Now he played well, but that's the kind of job you send Easton Stick out to do. That's the kind of job that they have this kid like Clovis or somebody like that the Texans was out there to do. He was getting this audition to see if he was NFL caliber sort of human, not franchise quarterback, not quarterback of the future, guy who can play in the NFL. Now I think he passed that test 100%.
I thought so too. Now, of course, Dylan Gabriel still having the hamstring might have factored into the extended playing time. But as soon as I read that and walked through on Monday, the light bulb went off that, yeah, this was Kevin Stefanski. He needs to evaluate Shador Sanders a lot more, or else he would have just played him for the first quarter or the first half, and that would have been all she wrote. But to
Right.
keep him out there behind a third string offensive line against the third string defense, against desperate defensive players trying to make a name for themselves in the conversations that are going to be had about roster spots and depth chart positioning in a couple of weeks and jobs on the 53-man roster. It felt like that Kevin Stefanski needed to see more out of Shador Sanders, and that's why he was out there.
Right. And the other thing, like some of the things that don't show up in the stat sheet, don't show up in the highlight reel. Ladies and gentlemen, a quarterback who on 4th and 2 takes a shotgun snap and starts running backwards. And he did this several times. He did it on a third down. Starts scrambling backwards. Starts trying to do his Michael Vick meets Randall Cunningham meets Marcus Allen in the Super Bowl. Who consistently does that is going to give his head coach migraines, and that's going to convert to sacks. It's going to convert to strip sacks in like bad situations, throwaways. Shador did that constantly at Colorado. That was one of the things I would keep pointing at. Like this wacky playground recess stuff that he does. He is not Vic level. Vic should never have been doing it. Randall probably should not have been doing it very much. He isn't really that athletic. If he's being chased down by Brian Burns or somebody like that, he is chased down. He is sacked for a loss of 17. There are plays like that. There are a couple of situations like that where you look at it and it was a reminder you're watching preseason football. You're watching the silly time. You're watching the Sam Erlinger for the
Yeah.
Colts type of stuff, and you have to take it with a grain of salt. And I think some folks, I led with Shador. Shador clicks. People are interested. I'm interested in him. Like there's this. I gotta build my my little tent either on the anti or pro Shador thing case. If you're going pro Shador, you're really putting the cart in front of a horse.
No, I agree. And I think that when you talk about why he slid to the fifth round, not to completely relitigate that entire conversation,
Right.
you can talk about what happened during the top 30 visits with the other prospects and the coaching staffs and the
Yeah.
scouts in the buildings where he was around. But I think that it's the fact that he holds on to the football for an eternity.
Yes.
And you can do that at times when you're playing against Big 12 defenses. You can do
Right.
that at times when you're allowing Travis Hunter to break off his route and do something outrageous against Nebraska, right? You
Mhm.
can do it in those situations. In the NFL, the speed of the game moves so much faster, and those plays are what put us in a conversation right now where I think that as well as he acquitted himself, I think the conversation remains: is Shador Sanders going to make the 53-man roster instead of is Shador Sanders going to challenge Joe Flacco, Kenny Pickett,
Right.
or Dylan Gabriel? And that's taking nothing away from Shador Sanders. He was a fifth round pick. This is the basket that fifth round picks fall into, especially quarterbacks during training camp in the preseason. And I think that the way Stefanski handled it, some of the good, some of the not so great in the outing, I think it's still an open conversation of is Shador a Cleveland Brown week one, more so than having any sort of conversation that Shador Sanders is going to be QB1 for the Browns.
100%. And I think he is, but going to be on the roster. I have a funny feeling it's going to be Flacco, Gabriel, him, and then Pickett stashed because that hamstring is just not going to get better for some reason for Kenny, unless Kenny Pickett figures out how to like get his career back on track for real, for real. It's going to be some combination like that, and that's good. I want Sanders to be able to pursue this and see if we can build out of it. I think he has the aptitude, ability to do it. But yeah, the oh my God, the depth chart came out and he's still fourth string. Yeah, yeah, guys, yeah. Take another look at that preseason game. Who was on the field? Who he was throwing it to?
Exactly, and I think that there's nothing wrong with saying Shador Sanders is in the building and has to figure out how to win a roster spot and how to
Right,
win a premium spot on the depth chart. And I think you're right. Kenny Pickett landing on the pup or on the IR list to open the season is the way that you solve this issue. You
right.
solve it and you figure it out. You kick the can down the road a little bit later. And driving back on Thursday from Latrobe from Steelers camp, which was, cocoa bananas in a lot of ways. Driving back, just flipping around the dial on Sirius XM, the big takeaway for me during those games, Mike, and we could talk about Anthony Richardson getting blown up and the state of the Colts quarterback competition and all that, but it was the 15 seconds between me hearing the call of Will Shipley pushing Tanner McKee across the goal line and listening to the Baltimore Ravens preseason game against the Colts and hearing the Ravens run a tush push,
Hmm.
it feels like we are living in the tush push era, and it's no longer a Philly John. It is now the Wildcat. It is now the rest of the NFL figuring out that we couldn't vote this out, so let's figure it out and how to run it and run it effectively.
Maybe, but maybe not, because those are like the only example. I don't remember many. Now I
The
saw on Twitter,
Raiders did it. They ran it twice, got
it was
blown up.
it was horrible. You got that's what I was trying to think of. You need to go look at the Aiden O'Connell quote unquote tush push. They didn't touch each other. They didn't touch each other.
They whiffed on the push.
it was like asking like sixth graders to square dance, where like the boys are afraid to touch the girls, girls are afraid to touch the boys sure as hell ain't touching the boys, even our more enlightened age. And so it's like they called it a tush push, they lined it up like a tush push, and there were guys like so I I think it should be the case. I expected to see teams running it more, practicing it more. Let's give this let's make our backup quarterback do it. I have a feeling there are going to be a couple of adopters. And I think there's going to be these teams, and the Bills will be on that list. Now, maybe Josh Allen does not want to be pushed, whatever. A bunch of teams are just going to be like, they're going to stand on this is not real football, and we would rather get screwed on fourth down. And that's just the way we are, and that's how we're going to live and die. I have a feeling we're going to see that in the NFL this year, where I'm going to call it five teams running the tush push, five teams.
I'm going to go over on that. And I
Okay.
think that we're at least going to see more than that in week 2 of the preseason because it feels like this is the time where you work on things. This is where the pitcher in spring training works on his sweeper or works on his, four seam fastball that might not have been going right at the end of last year. I think over the next couple of weeks, you're going to see more teams try it out in the preseason, see if they can get it to work. And, the one team that I think could potentially do it is the New York Jets. And maybe it's just because I was so dialed into Jets Packers on Saturday night, but Aaron Glenn, he's going to want to go for it on fourth down, right? They come from the Dan Campbell Detroit Lions school of thought, go for it on fourth down. They had a miserable run up the middle with Braylon Allen on fourth
Yeah.
down. Made me wonder if it's Justin Fields in the game and not Adrian Martinez. Is Braylon Allen pushing Justin Fields? Do we see the Justin Fields tush push? Do we see Baker Mayfield in Tampa Bay? Do we see him be a guy who's open to having the tush push run? I just think that this could be the year after all of the efforts for the league to get rid of the tush push, that this is the year we see the teams try to adapt to it and try to make it their own version of what the Eagles have done so well.
You know what? I could see Mayfield. Like, put me over the line, because like that's the way he thinks. I don't know.
Yes.
Justin Fields in the backfield, I almost like just do like a zone read or something so he can get outside a little bit. The one team I saw just get blown up horrendously at the goal line. You just mentioned the Jets, the Dolphins, they had Tua out there, and like they're running up the middle, and it's almost like Tyreek Hill. Tyreek had some very valid points about their short yardage offense, and I'm thinking, yeah, this team could use the tush push, but we ain't endangering Tua. What a job for Zach.
Right.
What a job for
Yeah.
Zach Wilson. You have a tush push out there. You can say, well, we're going to have, J-Lo and Fergie push you. That might be a special thing that Zach Wilson will enjoy. Who knows? Your guy.
And who cares? Who cares if everybody knows that you're going to run it? If Zach Wilson can run it effectively and you're going to convert on fourth down, bring him in.
Right,
Stop it.
and also it's like, well, he could throw the ball. You're like, you don't. Oh, he's in there to run the tush push, yes, but he could run a play. He can throw the ball still. Your guy Ty Warren, he's over there with the Colts.
Yeah.
I mean, if they give up on Anthony Richardson for all eternity, Ty Warren can go out there and be the tush push guy. It can be like your tight end or something like that, but just don't be like, well, the heck with this. I don't like it. My high school coach said it was a dumb play, so I'm never going to run it. That's a great way to not win the Super Bowl, guys.
All right, we're going to move on and play a little bit of game here based on the week one of the preseason. It's a game I like to play fact or overreaction. I'm going to throw them to you one at a time, and then I'll give my retort. But I have a handful of developments from week one of the preseason to just see if what we saw can translate into a narrative that goes into the regular season, or it's just a wild preseason overreaction in August when we're all trying to get used to what real football looks like and are still pretty confused.
I'm gonna hate this. I'm gonna hate this. Let's go. I'm gonna hate this. I didn't read it, so these are coming in cold for me. I didn't read the. I only read the first three lines of the preview. I was eating. You saw me. I was eating a peanut butter sandwich. I was in a hurry.
A pretty decent slice of bread. It's not the croissant bread that I get from Costco, but I'm think a pretty decent slice of bread.
5 booms, baby. 5 boom Costco bread.
All right, so here we go. Number one, Trevion Henderson will rush for over 1,000 yards and power the Patriots to the playoffs. Fact or overreaction?
Overreaction. I like the first one, but not the second one. All right, so we're going to give this. He's going to rush for over 1,000 yards, but it's going to be because it's like 5.5 yards a carry because he's going to have a couple of 60-yarders in there, and he's going to be rotating with Ramondre Stevenson until Vrabel's head explodes for the fumbles. But you're going to have a really good season from Henderson, and if he doesn't reach 1,000 yards rushing, it's going to be because there were a couple screen passes for 60 and they're not in there. That's not a playoff team. That is not a playoff team. And we're like, gosh, we don't know what we're going to see in Bo Nix. Guys, you don't like hearing it. We don't know what we're going to see in Drake May.
Yeah,
I,
I'm with you there. I think
I
the Patriots will be better. I put them in the same bin of teams that I put the New York Giants. I
yeah.
think that they can be a team that hovers around 500. Couple bounces go their way. They sneak into maybe a last wild card spot, but you're going to have a lot of balls bounce your way. But I do think Trevion Henderson is 1,000 yard plus back. I think that it might be an over under of week 7 before we see him supplant Ramondre Stevenson as the lead dog, as the new version of Derrick Henry for Mike Vrabel in New England. Love the explosiveness. You saw the kickoff return, but just after the catch, when he plants the foot and goes, there's just a next gear to Trevion Henderson. I'm not even sure that you saw at Ohio State all that often, but you certainly saw it against Washington in the preseason opener.
You saw it. You saw it at Ohio State. You didn't see it much because they would give the ball to Judkins a lot. He's better off on the perimeter. Now, I don't. That doesn't mean he can't be an inside runner, but it means that a guy like Vrabel's going to look at that and say, "Hey, we do have an inside runner. If we can duct tape the football to his hands, we have a good 1-2 punch here."
And I'm really teeing you up here, like putting the ball on the tee for my son playing t-ball in the backyard just so he can crush it over the fence. Is it time to worry about the Denver Broncos?
Overrefaction.
Okay.
Factory-ition. I would not. Anyone who was like these guys are sneaking into the Super Bowl competition conversation.
Hey,
Didn't
watch yourself. Careful. Careful.
yeah, like you.
Careful. You like me? Yes.
You still feeling that after the Patriots backups were just like, hey, this is easy against this team? Are you still feeling it?
I am still buying in on them. A little bit more worried, but the optimism I have is much more centered on that defense being, balls out with the kid they drafted, Jode Burden, opposite Patrick Surtain, with Nick Bolton just like destroying things, everything in his wake, picking off passes, sacking the quarterback, all of that stuff. I think they might have the number 1 and number 2 defense in the league. I'm very bullish on Bo Nix. I like the weapons they added through the NFL draft. I'm still bullish. I'm not quite worried yet. I know that you are. I know that you're pulling them back to earth a little bit.
It's a little bit like the bottom falling out potential has increased. That's the way I think of it right now. It's like, yeah, I could see the 11 wins based on defense, ball control, some development from Knicks. But then you start asking, can you see like the 5-win collapse? And after that, I can see the 5-win collapse because I'm not 100%, 1,000% certain on what we saw in Bo Nix. the lack of speed when you look at the roster on offense and you say, who is it that's going to take the lid off? Who's going to be sort of like a problem solver for that offense? And it's hard to find the guy because Cortland
RJ
Sutton,
Harvey. RJ Harvey. You're
aren't
going to be a run first offense with Sean Payton. And, as much as we want to worry about the Broncos offense, let's just remember you're not game planning for these preseason games from a defense standpoint. You're not out there game planning for Brock Purdy or whoever the backup quarterback for the San Francisco 49ers is.
backups. It was starters versus backups. It was starters
Yes.
versus backups. It was. Go ahead. Go ahead. I interrupted you.
I'm just saying you're running the most blasé of blasé defensive packages. I'm in on the ball control, running the ball theory. I think Bo Nix's ceiling is a lot higher based on what we saw a year ago. I'm building this optimism around the defense, and I'm going to need to see them collapse in week 1 or week 2 when everybody's on the field and everybody's game planning for the opponent rather than going through the motions against San Francisco.
Yeah, and that's it. They're the defense and ball control team. There's always a couple of defense ball control teams running around the bottom of the playoff picture, and the Broncos are still there. You mentioned Harvey. It's like a couple of years ago, Javonte Williams, man, that's it. Then Jaleel McLaughlin. There's always supposed to be a running back. These guys aren't that running back. These guys aren't him. Okay, they can run the ball. Okay, it's not like, oh, this is the guy who's gonna blow things up. Mims would probably be the guy, and I need to see it. I need to see that he's more than just a sort of a fake Tyreek who's like not quite. He's going to catch a lot of screen passes and then eventually break one. I need somebody who's going to break a bunch of screen passes and go for long scores.
Fact or overreaction? This is Justin Fields' best situation yet in his career.
Oh, okay, fact. That's the best situation. I mean, Tyrod's the backup. The
Yes.
expectations are low. It's an opportunity. I don't know. Defense looks good. He doesn't have Russ looking over his shoulder. He doesn't have a staff that's given up on him. I don't know what it equates to, but it's like this is a great chance for him to get out there and start most of the season. What do you think?
I'm with you. I'm going to go fact. All those things, all those ancillary components of life as Justin Fields aside, the offensive line is going to be better. They've drafted offensive tackles, I think, 2 of the last 3 years. You have an explosive running back in Braylon Allen who complements what Justin Fields does with his mobility really well, kind of a welfare recipients Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry. Yeah, you have Garrett Wilson stretching the field on the perimeter. They drafted Mason Taylor at tight end early on. The pieces are there, and you don't have, yes, there's a lot of pressure that this is an audition year. It's a 1-year deal, but it just seems like what the Jets want to do and what they want to be. I think they benefit a lot from Justin Fields' mobility. They built some nice weapons around him. I've been on just the Justin Fields bandwagon for a long time. I'm not ready to hop off yet.
I can't even find the bandwagon anymore. I'm happy he gets these opportunities. I understand why he gets these opportunities because the talent's there and the effort's there. It doesn't translate to success on the field. But yeah, this is a chance to go out and it's like, hey, you know what? You won a handful of games by scores like 20-16, whatever, because the defense was solid. You made some plays with your legs. Maybe that gets the Jets back on track. Maybe that gets him a long-term contract with the Jets. Maybe that gets him the guy for hire year by year job.
Let's roll on to the Kansas City Chiefs. Josh Simmons fixed Kansas City's offensive line problems. Fact or fiction? Overreaction or truth?
Overreaction. Overreaction. Looks good. Positive news coming out of camp. I saw 11 snaps. I actually watched all 11 snaps. They weren't putting him in any kind of position to like actually have to do anything tricky. It was Mahomes scores a touchdown because there was a fumble at like the 3 yard line or whatever, and like 2 plays and he gets in, and then Minshew's out there and they're almost calling like quick sprint outs to the right, so we don't see much from Simmons. Optimistic, but like there's nothing to go on yet except vibes.
Way too premature, in my opinion, for Patrick Mahomes to say that Josh Simmons could be one of the best left tackles ever, which he said today. Impressive. It's progress. It's a move in the right direction for the Chiefs that he played really well, but he's a rookie left tackle. These
Right.
guys take times to season and develop, and you're looking to replace a guy like Joe Thuney, who was playing alongside him at guard. I'm going to need to see more than one preseason game.
I love how he just hits them with that. And like every left tackle that Mahomes has ever played for. I'm trying to think now. It was Orlando Brown. It was Thuney, but Thuney was an emergency guy. It's like, really, you're going there right away? You can't just say, "Oh, he's going to be a starter. He's going to help us. He could be a Pro Bowler. He could be Rookie of the Year." One of the greatest. Come on, Patrick.
Yeah, nothing like setting the ceiling too high.
Right.
Last one here. Fact or overreaction, Abdul Carter will elevate the Giants defense.
Yeah. Okay. Fact. But here's the thing with the whole Giants defense thing. It's like their front four was their strength, and now their front four is really, really, really their strength. Carter is better than Tibbs. Tibbs is still there for what it's worth. But like it elevates them. But like you like there's a maximization of what you can do. It's like and now instead of getting 55 sacks, we're going to get 65 sacks. You know when you can't get sacks, it's when you're trailing 20-3 and your offense can't move the ball at all and the other team's handing off. You can't get sacks. So he elevates them, but I don't know. It's just like Saquon elevated them. I don't know what that means.
Fact here for me, talked to Carl Banks about this, wrote about it in the column a couple weeks ago. He said, quote, adding Abdul Carter, it modernizes what the Giants are able to do on defense. They've entered the modern era of the NFL, unquote, from Carl Banks, which I guess it's because you can blitz in different ways. You can offer unique looks. It takes some pressure off the back end of the defense. I think they got better on the back end, bringing in Javon Holland. I like Tyler Nubin. I think corner is still an open question for the Giants, what they're going to do at cornerback. But I think that pass rush and that front seven, that's the key to me for them being in the mix to win 7-ish games. It's the reason why I don't think they're going to get blown out, because they're going to be so disruptive and not have to put a lot of pressure on their offense to carry the load.
And that's it. Like when we're talking about that 7-win threshold, the logic is there are going to be opponents who are going to be so stressed by that front four that it's almost going to be like the equalizer. And even to a degree against a team like the Eagles, if the Eagles are having trouble running the ball or something like that, that's going to put so much pressure even on the Eagles' offensive line. But again, I look at that and like, yeah, Carter's Carter, that's great. You do not have answers at the secondary. You do not have a number two wide receiver. Okay,
Offensive line is still a work in progress. It's going to be better, but it's a 15-year work in progress.
right, and I'm sure at some point behind the scenes, they're like, well, maybe we can move Tibbs. Tibbs has a little bit of a reputation of not always being with the program. I'm surprised that your requisite Lions type of team said, well, we'll come and light a fire under his butt, and he'll help him be on the other side of Hutch or whatever. It didn't happen. So again, it's like a bunch of sacks. We said this about like the Raiders last year.
Yes.
Yeah, because like they got Max Crosby, they had Wilkins, and God only knows what's going on there. I'm glad that disappeared. They had Tyree Wilson, the other dude. They had some other guys in front seven. It's like, well, the path to victory for this team is they're going to get like 50, 60 sacks, and you can get a lot of sacks. You're not moving the ball. You can't cover on the back end. It only gets you so far.
Didn't have a quarterback, didn't have a lot of weapons on
Quarterback.
offense, and the Giants are in a similar situation. Mike, what's coming up on the two deep zone?
I forget. Actually, I got a thing coming up tomorrow. We're going to talk about some things that we didn't talk about today, like Matthew Stafford's mysterious back injury and his new Aaron Rodgers worthy, wavy, cravey, Timothy Leary cure that's coming up, and talking about some other things there. Also, just getting ready for next week's preseason action. I'm sure you're doing the same thing.
Yes, training camp tour stop in Owings Mills tomorrow on Wednesday for the Baltimore Ravens. That'll be a lot of fun. And Monday, the annual release of my survey of NFL executives, coaches, and current players, their predictions, their thoughts on some of the biggest storylines of the upcoming season. Under the radar MVP candidates, Super Bowl matchup, they expect to see those sort of things. Excited to get that out there. We have close to a dozen respondents already, trying to button that up, get a couple more viewpoints in there, but that'll be in 4 downs on Monday morning. So be on the lookout for that.
That is phenomenal. That's great. Just a reminder when you're driving out to Owings Mills, the trick is you take 95 to 695 to 895 to 1795, 1195, and then you get off at Google 95, and then you have to go. Have you ever been to Owings Mills?
I have not, but every time we've driven down to Walt Disney World a couple of times, and it always surprises me that you have to get off of I-95 to go to 295 to 695 to wind up back on I-95 again.
There are a lot of highways, and I'll just warn you, when you think you're lost, you're almost there. Trust me on Owings Mills. Anyone who's been to Owings Mills,
Story of my life. Story of my life. When you think you're lost, you're almost there.
yeah, this is extreme though. When you are driving through a residential network neighborhood past people's houses, and there are like woods off to the side, and you're like, "Oh my God, where am I?" Trust me, you are almost there. You did not make a wrong turn at Albuquerque. You are almost at Ravens headquarters. And I know you like to try and grab a brew and things like that. You found something in Latrobe. You are not going to find anything in Owings Mills. You just want to. You have a hotel, that's great. If you're turning around, get home before rush hour.
That's the plan. Avoid the Beltway traffic if at all possible. He's Mike Tanner. Subscribe to the Two Deep Zone on Substack. Follow Mike on Blue Sky. If you enjoy the podcast, please go ahead and subscribe to the Apple Podcast Store. Leave us those 5-star reviews in the Apple Podcast Store. They really help grow the show, boost us up the algorithm, make us easier to find. You can subscribe on my YouTube channel at Matt Lombardo 975, and of course, subscribe to Between the Hash Marks on Substack. Mike, this was a ton of fun. I'm looking forward to even more preseason action this weekend.
Absolutely. Also, DartMania! DartMania!